This is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video I'm going to be testing Sailor Shikiori Yamadori. I'm going to be testing it in a variety of pens and nib sizes ranging from a Pilot Extra Fine up to a 1.5 stub. And when I get done testing it on this Tomoe River paper, I'll take a look at some writing samples on some other papers as well. I'm going to start with the Sailor Extra Fine. This is one of those inks, a teal color, that doesn't represent itself well on camera, but this is a nice saturated teal color. And this Extra Fine, which is normally scratchy, didn't feel too bad on this paper, but on all the other papers that I tried it on so far this morning, it was very scratchy. But on Tomoe River, very acceptable, no scratchiness at all. Next, I've got a Pilot Pereira with a fine nib. And this is very smooth. All right, you can see it's quite a bit wetter. That helps with the smoothness. Next, I've got a medium nib in another Pilot 78G. Notice this is one of those inks that really, I notice this in most of the pens, really wants to stick to the nib, especially these gold-plated nibs for some reason. Tends to stick to them the worst. All right. Next, I've got a Nemesine 0.6 stub. All right, and I'm noticing on my ink smears here, it's coming across pretty bright blue, but I would call this, in real life, it's a saturated, kind of subdued teal color. I would advise, if you're interested in this ink, take a look at other first of all, always try an ink sample if you're unsure, and take a look at other photographs of it before you buy. Just feels velvety smooth in this stub nib. All right, now it's going to take a little while for that to dry. Let's look at it, my writing samples on other papers first. So on Rhodia, I made some notes, or actually I didn't make notes on Rhodia. On this paper, it came across, let me see, I'm not seeing any sheen, but it is shading a little bit in this stub nib. I'm not noticing much shading. This is such a dark saturated ink that it comes across, to me, it comes across as just a velvety, smooth ink, especially in this Nemesign stub. And then on the finer nibs, it's just puts down a nice consistent line. I always think of this type of ink as a nice work ink, and that is confirmed by the 20-pound copy paper that the fine, extra fine, fine, and medium, I'll show they didn't bleed through the paper. They spread a little bit. The ink spread a little bit, but no real feathering. Now when you get into the wider nibs that are putting down more ink, the Nemesign, you can see the rough edges. It's starting to feather a little bit. And then the 1.5 stub, it doesn't look that great. The edges are rough and it is starting to feather. So it's a good appropriate work ink. Works well on 20-pound copy paper, your extra fine, fine, and medium that you would probably be using in a work situation. Did really well on those papers. And in my little ink journal that uses ARC notebook paper, it looks good. Again, you see the same thing as the copy paper. It's starting to feather in the wider nibs. Let's see if it wanted to bleed. Yeah, on the stub nibs it wanted to bleed, but that was it. The extra fine, fine, and medium did okay. Now I wanted to compare it to a few inks that, oops, wrong way, that I've looked at so far. Yamadori is a little bit darker than Israel's Zablau, and Sailor Yamagi is a little bit brighter, and then Califolio Equinox is almost exactly the same. There's a slight difference, but it is very slight. So if you have one of these, Califolio Equinox or Sailor Shikiori Yamadori, they are very similar. So if you have one of them, you probably wouldn't need the other one. Now, let's take a look at our Tomoe River paper. I'm seeing sheen, a lot of red sheen on the stub nib. I'm seeing some red sheen on the Nemesign 0.6, and I'm just seeing little bits of sheen on the medium nib. Little bits of it on the fine nib, but it doesn't really, it's not something you're going to see a lot of, I don't think. Now keep in mind, these are Japanese extra fine, fine, and mediums. You can bump that up a little bit if you're using German or Western nibs. But yeah, that's a nice ink. This would make a nice work ink, I would believe. Alright, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. Wait, I forgot one. My little ink log I've been keeping in my Leuchtturm. Alright, and here you can see Yamadori compared to Yamagi. It's a little bit darker. These are both teals. This one's just a little bit darker. Alright, now, if you found this video helpful, you can give me a thumbs up and subscribe.